So, that's good. Okay. So we will start with the transfer between bed and wheelchair. The first choice would always be to do it standing. Helping someone to stand up, turn and sit down again. And you can do that with an independent person. You can do it with one caregiver or two caregivers using a belt or a flexi move. But when it starts becoming tricky is when they have weak legs. Because if you help them to stand up and they suddenly fall or collapse, then the nurse will have to take all the load on her back. So the first one that I want to show you is when I can stand up a little bit, but I'm not strong enough to stand up over a longer time. So then I use a board that we normally use for sliding, and then I place the wheelchair as close as possible, brakes on, then I place the board behind me, and now since I can stand a little bit, I have some function. I want to see if I can stand up and turn as much as I can, and if I get weak, I can sit down on the board, and then I can try again and sit down, and try again and sit down. So that would be a way to make it safer for the caregiver at the same time as you're activating the user as much as possible. So they are just in between fully standing and not standing at all. So then make sure to put a board so that they can sit down, and then you are safer. Now, if you are going to slide on it, if the user cannot stand, then it's important to check if the user is capable of using a board. A good check is to see if they can lean over from side to side. That is the best behavior that we can get from a person that is going to use a board. If I can lean over like that, then I lean over 3 times. The first time is when I want to place the board. It's much easier when they lean over. The second time is when I'm going to put my weight on the board. When I'm sitting here right now, the board is underneath my left side, but not underneath my right side. So if you try to slide me now, the right side of my body will not slide. It is high friction. But the second turn, when I'm leaning over, reduce friction on the right side. Now I can slide, and when the board ends, there's high friction again, and then I lean over a third time so that I can slide all the way in. So leaning over 3 times is very important. I will show this again. First, you lean over once to place the board. Then you lean over a second time to reduce friction. And you can slide. When the board ends, you need to lean over towards the board again, so you can slide all the way in. If the user cannot do this by themselves, you as a caregiver have to guide their upper body, leaning from side to side, either with hands or a belt or a flexi move, whatever you have in hand. I'm going to get another product, just 2 seconds. This is called the footstool. It's 10 centimeters thick, and you place it so that you put your feet on top of it. I'll lower the camera a bit. Now, before I use it, I want to show you something. When I use a board or a slide, it's easy that you slide onto the floor. Most of the time, if this happens, you should look at the knee and the hip. If the knee is lower than the hip, you have a problem. The knee should always be as high as the hip, or even better, a little bit higher than the hip. So by using the footstool, you can see that my knees are as high as the hip. So then I can slide much better. Okay? So when you are working, some wheelchairs have an armrest that you cannot remove. Then there is a special solution where you put the wheelchair like this, lift their feet into the bed, and slide them this way in and out of the bed. Not very common today, because so many more wheelchairs today have armrests that you can remove. Normally here, I try to put the wheelchair in an angle so that I can slide in without hitting the wheel. As I said earlier, always brakes on to make sure that it's safe. The nurse, if the user is heavy, it can be really hard for the nurse. And if a nurse is standing in front here, they will be working away from their body, same if they're standing behind. So when you are standing in this position, or in this position, you can go up with one knee if it's okay, and then you can guide the person over. But if it is really heavy, then I would prefer to do it in another way. Since I'm by myself here, I have made a small doll that, it's not a small doll, it's a large one. I will get him so that I can show you what I mean. 2 seconds. Okay, now you can see again. So If it is really heavy, of course, we try to get the bed as low as possible. But if it's still heavy, then I can put on a return belt on the patient, on the user, and then I connect with a draw shape in the handle, and then it could be one nurse in front, one behind, or just one. And then the force needed to get the person to the bed. Here it's very easy for me to pull so that they come up to this position where they are sitting. So I used a board. It's like a bridge. It will build up a nice surface where you can slide. Underneath, it's got non-slip surface, high friction, so that it's not sliding away. It's still a little bit soft, so that it's a little bit flexible. You bend up one part. You see here that I took up this part here, and that will then protect me against the wheel. So when I place it, I put that against the wheel, and I will slide and pass the wheel easily. The board is my first choice. If that's not working, it could be that if I have bare skin, if I don't have trousers on, bare skin is not sliding on a board. So then maybe I would prefer to have a slide, because using a slide, the low friction is inside. And then it doesn't matter if you have no clothes on or at all, right? In some situations, I would use a combination. I would take the board to get a bridge. I would take the slide to reduce friction when it's bare skin, and then it is working really well. So the most common mistakes I've seen is that people are not using the technique to lean over 3 times, as I mentioned in the beginning. That is very important. Otherwise, it will be heavy. The other thing is that if you move a person between bed and wheelchair, where the knee is lower than the hip, then you will have problems. It will increase the risk of the patient sliding out of the bed or the chair onto the floor. And that's not what we want, right? So if you try any of these and you feel that it's too heavy, then you should go and use a mobile lift or a ceiling lift instead. Use a sling to lift the person instead of sliding. So this is very different in different countries. For example, in UK and the US, they are very, very hard on putting pressure on people to use lifts. And they say, as soon as it's heavy, you have to go over and use a lift. But in many other countries, they keep working manually without the lift, for a longer time. So I really want you to understand that as soon as it feels heavy, you should use a lift. Is there any questions about the transfer between bed and wheelchair?
Ar turite kas nors klausimų, kas liečia šitą situaciją? Maybe later some questions.
Okay.
And we
Okay,
can
then
go.
go on. The next thing we are going to talk about is helping someone up from the floor. And let me use the board here so that we can see. It's when it comes to helping someone up from the floor, it could be very heavy, it could be very dangerous. So I would say that we need to have a regulation or a paper stating how it should be done, so people don't do a mistake. So let me see. Yeah, I think you will see it. So the first thing is what I would say, med check. So that we check that if they fell on the floor, they might have injured themselves. And if we suspect that they have injured themselves, broken anything, we shouldn't help them up. Then it's better that they stay down. We call for a doctor or a nurse or the ambulance to get a check. If we feel that it's okay, they fell on the floor, they can walk, they can stand, but they lost balance or strength and fell, maybe after 5 minutes, maybe they are strong enough to stand up. So then we want to use the natural pattern. I will show that soon. I will just show the alternatives here first. But then it should be the person that is climbing up using their strength, and the nurse, the caregiver, should only be guiding them, not lifting very much. After that, we if that is not possible, we have to see if there is mechanical lifting solution. That could be a ceiling lift, it could be a mobile lift that we use together with a sling. That is good. We could do a lateral lift. We could do a lift in a seated position, depending on the patient. And if that is not possible, maybe someone fell in a home where we don't have the lift, then the last alternative would be a manual lift. And then with manual, you can say, then it could be that we use a stretcher of some kind. And the absolutely last solution would be lifting with manual, just hands, no stretcher, nothing. And that is what we teach to the fire department and rescue workers that have to go in without products to get someone out. And then you can understand that the manual lifting, it could be heavy. During all my years teaching, I have asked people how many they think that they should be when they are lifting. And instead of just answering, I told them, do a test. Start by lifting when you are 6 people. And then if that's okay, you try with 5. If that's okay, you try with 4. If that's okay, you can go down to 3. And every time when I do this, and then I ask them, okay, divide the weight of the person with the number of people lifting. And most every time it ends up with 15 to 20 kilos per person. So that means that if someone is weighing 80 kilos, you should be 4 people, and so on. So that is something that you should think about. So don't lift manually if you're not many enough. And if you cannot do it manually, then you put a mattress on the floor. If you get a mattress down, a pillow, and a blanket, then they are safe on the floor until you get either a lift or you get more people coming in to help you to lift them up. So I would like you to have that one. Always start with a medical check. See if they can climb up. If that's not possible, use a mechanical lift. If that's not possible, do it manually. And manually, first choice would be with a stretcher. Manually, second choice would be with just using hands. And then if that is not possible because we are not many enough, then put a mattress down on the floor until you get a lift or more people in. Okay. Now, I will just move back a bit like this. If I'm doing a manual lift, this is called a flexi move. It has 4 handles, 2 on each side. This will cover the head, shoulders, and the hips. Then if we are 2 people, we can, if it's a smaller person, then we can lift them in a seated position or in a lateral position. If there is 1 on each side holding on to the handles, the third person could hold on to the legs. Maybe using the smaller size of a flexi move, then that is really nice. And then using this combination, we have 6 handles. So if we could go from 2 people to 3, 4, 5, or 6 people lifting when we're using the flexi move. So that is a method that is working quite well. If let me just this one again. If we are lifting from the floor with a lift, you start up always with the medical check, as we said before. Give them a pillow. You see if they are able to sit or if you need to lift lateral. So there is slings that you can lift lateral even with a mobile lift. And you just need to choose the right sling. And when you have the right sling for seated lifting or lateral lifting, you place it by turning the patient over on the side, putting the sling in, then turning on to the other side, and then the sling is in the correct position. With a ceiling lift like the one I have behind me, it's very simple. They have a long strap, so They will come all the way down to the floor, no problem. You have to be underneath. So it's not okay to pull the lift in a strap sideways. It has to be straight underneath the motor. If you have a motor that can move both sideways and across, then no problem. Then it will automatically find its correct position. Otherwise, you need to slide the patient to the lift. Many patients, they fall either at the kitchen table or in the bathroom when they sit on the toilet. And then it's quite smart to place the sling, place a pillow, and then slide them across the floor to the lift. Because then there's no shearing on the back, because you have the sling protecting them, and then you come underneath the lift. If you use a mobile lift, first you need to be sure if it has the lifting capacity that you need, and that's the same for a ceiling lift. You check on each one, it will say the safety working load. So there is many different, I would say that most every lift on the market will be able to lift 150 kilos, but there's then a lot of them lifting 200 and some lifting almost 300, and we have done lifting solutions all the way up to 500 kilos. So you need to check the lift and the sling, and any other component used in the lift has to be tested to the weight you need to lift. And then when you are lifting, I will go and get a lift so that I can show you what I mean, the positioning. Now I think you can see me here. When we are using the lift, we try to open up the legs so that we have a lot of space, and then we have already placed the sling. So now there's no sling, but I'll just tell you the positions. The most common position is to have the patient like this, with the head up in the corner, or a pillow so that they are comfortable, and then we can lift. This is the only situation where we apply the brakes on a mobile lift. We want to apply the brakes because when we start lifting, the mobile lift will try to move forward. And if it moves forward, it will hit the head of the patient. So if we put on the brakes and we start lifting, the patient will instead slide back a bit. So that position is what I recommend when you lift from the floor. So that is the only time you use the brakes on a mobile lift. Otherwise, never ever apply the brakes, because when you are lifting, if the weight has to be straight underneath the sling bar. If it's not, if the weight is out on the side, it can tip the lift over on the side. So that is really important. So there is many different techniques to place a sling. Most common, the simple version, is turn the patient over on the side, fold the sling double, and then you place it in, and then patient back, and then turn again to get the other part out on the other side. This is something that everybody should try before they do it on a patient. They should try this on a colleague. So this is something that Slaugivita can help you with to do a practical trial on this later. Okay. If we instead talk about a lateral transfer, bed to bed, or it could be bed to shower trolley, to an X-ray table, to an operating table, then there is many different alternatives. The steps that I want you to remember is, number one, move the patient from the center of the bed out to the side of the bed. Then place the product. We have many different products. I'll show you a board, I'll show you a slide, and I'll show you a roller slide soon. And after that, you put both the beds together and then apply all brakes. Don't forget to apply brakes. There has been accidents where you start sliding and then suddenly see that there's no brakes on, and the patient is in between, and the bed starts sliding apart, and the patient falls down to the floor. So always make sure you have brakes on. If there's a gap, most of the time it's just a gap where the bed rail is connecting to the other bed, so that the mattresses don't meet, but there should not be an open gap down to the floor. And if there is rails, you can put a blanket or some pillows in between to make it a more even and soft, comfortable surface, right? Now, since you move the patient out to the side first, now when you put the beds together, the person standing on the other side don't have to lean over as far when they are going to slide them over, okay? So my first choice would probably be a board. I'll get that one here. You see, it's a large one. So it will cover head, shoulders, and down almost to the knee. It has the same slippery surface as the other one. It has the same high friction material here to make it stay. So when you place this one, it is quite easy to bridge the gap. The person will not even feel a small gap. So you try to get the beds together, but if there's a small gap, no problem. And as I said earlier, bare skin is not sliding on a board. So if I'm going to the shower trolley, this is not working well. Then if you take a draw sheet underneath the patient, then it's quite easy to move the person, because then it is the sheet that is sliding on the board, and then it doesn't matter if they are naked. But going to a shower trolley, maybe you don't want a sheet underneath. But then we have the easy slide. It is exactly as the smaller size. It's like a long sleeping bag with very slippery surface inside. So anything you put on top is sliding easily. Now, sometimes you need the board to build the bridge over the gap, and you need a slide to reduce friction. Then you can use a combination. You can use both of them at the same time. Works really well. I'll go and get a third product. This is called a roller slide. It is a board inside, so that will build a bridge, and then it is a slide around it. So this will cover a bridge and slide at the same time. There is one that is in a half size, and this one that is in a full length, covering almost the entire body. So that would probably be the one that is best when you have both a gap and a person without clothes on. Moving from bed to bed, you should look on the person so that you have people helping shoulders, hips, when the person is standing at the side of a bed. If you need more people, it could be someone standing on above the head of the bed, if you don't have it close to the wall, and pull in that direction, and one below the bed pulling along the feet. So then if there's a really heavy person and you're working manually, you can be all the way up to 6 people. Now, if this is heavy at some time and you cannot add more people, then you need to go for a mechanical solution. You can use a mobile lift or a ceiling lift. And then there is different slings that can lift in a lateral position from bed to bed. I'll go and get a sling bar that I can show you. If you do a lot of lateral lifting, here you can see a big sling bar that you can put up in a lift. It's working in a mobile lift if it's a quite large one, and in a ceiling lift. But even if you have a normal 2-point sling bar, you can get the person almost in a lateral position. They will be a little bit in a position where they're not straight, but almost straight, where you can lift. If you have a 4-point sling bar, even better, right? So we should go for a lifting solution as soon as we feel that it's heavy, okay? Now, it would be much easier if I were in the same room as you, because then we could show all techniques and you could try all the techniques, but now I just can explain what's important so that you can try together with Slaugivita all the different solutions and products. Okay. Now we also had a question about turning heavy users, and then I would say that if money is not the problem, I would use one of the turning products that you have that is mechanical. We have a product called Vendlet that is like a sheet on a roll, a motorized roll. Then you just push the hand control and you can turn the patient from side to side easily, no effort at all. And no pain for the patient, no shearing. So it's a very, very smart system for both the patient and the caregiver. You can find it on the website. Tatiana can help you to find that product, and it's available for you. And if that is not working, we have the draw sheets that we use for turning Wendylets, where we can attach the draw sheet to the lift, and then the lift will do the turning. So if you already have a lift for lifting the patient from bed to wheelchair, for example, you can also use it for turning over on the side. I'll show you the draw sheet here. I'll just move some stuff away from the bed. Now you see a Wendylet in the bed. Slippery surface in the center, and out here on the side, it's high friction. And you can have some that you tuck in like a normal sheet, or like this one, where it is like a fitted sheet that you just put around the mattress. The draw sheet that you put on top, it has handles out here on the side. So you can attach these handles to the lift. And when you attach it to the lift, it's not for lifting, it's for turning, pulling. So you're not allowed to lift the person out of the bed, but instead of having 1 or 2 nurses standing pulling with their hands to turn the patient, the lift can do it. And most places where you have a heavy user, you already have a lift. So then you don't need to pay for an extra lift to get there, but just to get the ventilator in. And with that one, you can use it for moving higher up in bed, turning in bed, and it is also reducing friction and shearing. So it's a really, really nice product that is not so expensive. So that is the solutions I would recommend if someone is heavier. In US, where they have a lot of heavy patients, they use the safe handling sheet. I'll get that one and show it for you. So then the sling is like a big sheet covering the whole bed, and then there's straps all along the side on both sides where you can attach them. And as you can see here, it's different loops. It means that at the middle of the body, you take the short one. At the feet or the head, you take the long one. And that together will help the person to be almost lateral. When you are using a product like this, you don't have to place and remove it. That is the big advantage. So placing a sling, removing a sling, when the patient weighs 250, 350 kilos, it's a hard work. So then with this, they stay on the safe handling sheet all the time. They sleep on it. It's made of a net that is very, very thin, but strong. So that you can see it. So you can see here that it's a very, very fine material. And on the top, it's just cotton so that you have something nice to sleep on. So with that one, you don't slide, you lift up and move to the other bed, or you lift up and move higher up in bed, or you lift up and move to the side of a bed. Then you release all the straps on one side and lift only the ones on the other side, and then you turn over on the side. So that is what I would suggest if you have a heavier patient that you are using. Okay. I was also asked to say a few words about rehab products. And I would start in the other end with the natural pattern. If you want to think rehab, you can use any of the products. But the most important thing is you need to define the natural pattern. So what I normally do when I'm teaching is to, if we are looking at the natural pattern for turning in bed, then we place a person in the bed, and then I tell them that when I tell you, I want you to turn over on the other side quickly, without thinking, just turn and turn over now. And then when we do that with a number of people, we know what the natural pattern looks like. But that was a strong and healthy person because they did it quickly. So then we can do the next step and tell them, now you need to try to act like if you have back pain, or like if you have a weak side, or if you're just old and weak, and then turn slowly, slowly, slowly over on the side. And then we will see a totally different pattern. And that is what we call compensatory pattern. So that is something that you then should use on the patients with the same type of problem that you tried to imitate. A slide is quite often a really good product that you can use in many times, but it could be as simple as a book. You know, when I'm going to stand up, if I'm a little bit weak, trying to get up but don't have enough strength, then I want to use my hands. And if I want to use my hands, the mattress is soft, but just by putting a book on the mattress and then putting my hand on the book, I get a stronger surface. And then I can more easily get up. It could also be that I take the footstool and put it here so that I can push when I want to get up. So we always say, how can we help them in a very simple way? The first thing I showed you today, to use a board when you're going between bed and wheelchair, and use it even if the person can stand up, but have it as a safety if they sit down halfway. That is a really good thing for rehab. And there's a lot of walking aids that is really nice for rehab. On our website, you can go for system rometic and then stand tall walkers. And then there's a lot of different walking aids that you can use, because too many people today are falling while walking. And that's a shame, because quite often when I talk to the nurses after, they say, well, we knew that he was weak. And if you know that the person is weak, it would be smart to use a product and a solution where it doesn't matter if they fall. There is slings for walking that you connect up to the ceiling lift or a mobile lift so that you can walk, and then if you collapse, the sling will catch you. And even the walking tables that we have a harness, a belt that can protect you if you lose balance or strength. And that is something really nice that you can use. So I would say the most important thing for rehab is to try to identify first natural pattern with the definition, the way a strong and healthy person is moving, and then identify the compensatory pattern that the patient you are helping is using. And then just lay down in a bed and try to behave like the same person and see, would you start with the hand or the foot? Can you lift the hip? Should you roll over or should you lift? And I mean, when you do that, you will see the way to move. The Wendelet, as I told you here, is reducing friction when we have it in the bed. And I've seen nurses getting it just to protect the nurses from the heavy work and the high load on the back. But 2 weeks later, they say, wow, we are so surprised. Now the patient have started moving because they have some strength, but not enough for a normal shape. But with the low friction from a Wendylet or a slide, then they can start moving again. So all the small things that we can do is important. Another thing that I want to mention when we talk about rehab is speed. If you try to move the person forward or up, whatever, faster than they are capable to, then they will start resisting. You need to go down to their pace and move them in the speed that they can manage, and then it's quite easy. When you look at the patterns, how the person is moving, then that is the key for getting activity. Okay, any questions now?
Ar turime klausimų, Hakanai, apie pacientų aktyvinimą, apie pacientų reabilitaciją, o gal apie perkėlimus tarp paviršių? No questions for a moment, okay? Maybe later.
But if there comes questions later, Tatiana can answer many questions, and if not, then it's just to pass over the questions to us here, and we will help you. And there's most of the time there's an easy solution. It's just never to give up and keep searching for an easier way to work. Okay. So
Ar turime dar klausimų?
Sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, it's okay. I just asked if there is some questions, and if no questions, I think will be some questions a little bit later.
Yeah. But then no problem, then you just let us know. Okay, then I just thank you for watching and listening, and let's hope you got some solutions that you can use.
Ar turite dabar jau kas nors perkėlimo priemonių ir dirbate ir galėtumėt galbūt kažką pasakyti, parekomenduoti savo kolegom, kas jums pasiteisino? Mums tikrai labai smagu visada išgirsti tą tokį atgalinį ryšį. Labai visi nedrąsus. Okay, I just was asking about feedback, if someone uses some transfer equipment and what do they think, but people may be ashamed a little bit.
Yeah, it's okay, no problem.
Okay, if there is no questions, so thank you very much, Hakan. Thank you for the first time, now it's second time, and I hope we will meet you again after some time.
I hope so.
Okay.
So just
Yeah.
have a great time and talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye.
Ačiū visiems, kas buvote prisijungę. Jeigu, kaip ir sakiau, turėsite dar klausimų, tai prašom kreipkitės. Ir kviečiame jūs prisijungti prie mūsų Facebook paskyros, taip pat LinkedIn'e ir taip pat kviečiame užsiprenumeruoti mūsų naujienlaiškį ir tada jūs visada žinosite, kokie artimiausi mokymai, kokie yra geri pasiūlymai Slaugivitoje ir išgirsite daug naudingų patarimų ir straipsnių, galbūt ir parodysime, ką mes esame padarę, galbūt jūs bus įdomu pas kolegas nuvažiuoti į svečius. Tai geros likusios dienos ir iki sekančių susitikimų.